Honorable judges, my dear fellow colleagues, good evening. So it is my great honor to stand here again to show my teaching plan with you. And my teaching plan consists of 4 parts. The first one is teaching material. The second one is introduction to my objectives. And the third one will be something about the teaching methods. And the last one will be the detailed teaching procedure. So first, let's come to the first part, that is teaching material. After scanning through this kind of teaching material, this is a selection from the prelude to collection of Chinese version of Shakespeare's works. And the writer, or we can say this master, was Mr. Zhu Shenhao. So we know that he was a great translator, as well as a great, we can say, a kind of literary man. And he wrote this one not in modern English, modern Chinese, and all the language seems to be in a formal, accurate, and exact style. You can say that we can find so many full character forms here, and the intention of the writing will be providing the kind of a guiding principle for our translation, especially in our translating of the English classical literature. So I think that this kind of material is suitable for the course of translation theory. So I designed all the teaching procedures based on such kind of a course. Okay? And next, I will talk something about the teaching objectives. And since all these kind of teaching activities should be carried out all around the teaching objectives, so I will follow the following teaching objectives. First of all, I would like to hope my students can have a general understanding of the difference between the Chinese language and the English language. And then the second one will be a general introduction to the methods in translating English classical literatures, some basic methods. Okay? And then the third one will be how to evaluate a translation, maybe from 2 different kinds of angles, as Mr. Zhu Shenhao has mentioned in this theory. Okay? And the last one will be, I hope that my students, when they are translating the kind of literature works, they will always keep in their mind that it should be reader friendly. Okay? So that is all this kind of objectives. Okay, and then the next one, I will mention something about teaching methods. As for the teaching methods, first I will use a kind of communicative method, since we have some discussion with my students, and also the students can have a kind of discussion with their classmates. Okay? And the second one will be a task-based method. Before this class, maybe in the last period, I will assign my students to translate, have a taste about translating a selection from the English classical works. So they will know that the difficult point in translating the English classical works. So maybe it will help them to understand Mr. Zhu Shenhao's principle. Okay? And then the last one will be a kind of a situational play if we have time. But it seems that it's too limited, so I just planned for this one. And then I want to explain my teaching procedures in detail for you. Okay? I planned this one for a 45-minute class. So it will consist of 6 parts. Lead in, the factors of influencing the translating of classical English literature, and the methods used in the translating, and then the practice, then the summary, and the last one will be the homework assignment. As for the time allotment, I want to spend 3 minutes on lead in, and then 10 minutes on the factors, 12 minutes on the methods, 15 minutes on the practice, and 4 minutes on the summary, and just 1 minute for the homework assignment. And then I will explain it in detail. The first part will be a lead in, and for the lead in, I want to arouse students' interest in translating such kind of works, or interest on this kind of translation theory. So first I will show maybe 2 different versions, Chinese version and English version of one selection of Shakespeare's work. Maybe one part from Hamlet or one part from Romeo and Juliet, since that these 2 seems to be the easiest one. So I think that maybe that will be suitable. And then I will introduce something about the factors that influencing our translation of those kind of classical literatures. Generally speaking, maybe the students can have a discussion about this topic, and maybe they will share their opinion on this one, and they will think that maybe the Chinese language and the English language are so quite different. So then I will summarize those kind of factors. And altogether, maybe 4 factors. The first one will be the geographical factor, and then religious and historical factor, and then the folk customs, and the last one will be the thinking modes. And in Shakespeare's works, there are so many biblical allusions. So it seems that for this factor, maybe the English language, I think that the English major, the students should know more about this kind of culture, so it will help them to translate such kind of works. And then about the thinking modes, just as Mr. Zhu Shenhao mentioned in this kind of theory, that the Chinese thinking and the English thinking seems to be quite different. For example, in our Chinese, it seems to be paratactic and full of imagination. But in the English language, it is hypotactic and full of abstractness. So that is thinking with quite different. So students should grasp this one, and maybe it will improve their translation. So this is the second part of my teaching. And then the third part will be the general introduction to some methods. In this part that Mr. Zhu Shenhao just mentioned something in a very general way, so I want to mention this one in a detailed way for students to understand. And how to achieve this, how to cope with this kind of factors, maybe we can use 4 different kind of methods. Now, the first one will be literal one. For example, in Hamlet's works, there is a very famous saying that is to be or not to be. So I think that this is a good example to show that the method of literal translation. And the second method will be free translation. In some of the literature works, since that we have different kind of expressions, and even we have different kind of folk customs, so it cannot achieve accurate equivalence. So we can use something to replace this one. So we can use free translation. And then the third one will be transliteration. In Shakespeare's works, there are so many English names, and also some of the names of the cities and places, and even some of the periods. So maybe this will be suitable for translating those kind of names, such as one of the famous tragedy named Macbeth. So it means that we can use transliteration. And the last one will be the annotation. For annotation, it is often used in translating such a kind of classical works, not only the English one, but also the Chinese one. And for example, for the students who are not so familiar with English classical literature, maybe they can use annotation. And then, so these are the 4 methods. And then I will let my students have some practice in class. Maybe first they have to translate this selection written by Mr. Zhu Shenhao, and then I hope that they can translate one selection of Shakespeare's work, maybe a poem like Sonnet 18, or some kind of drama like the Bacchusing of Romeo and Juliet. And then I will use 4 minutes to summarize this kind of thing. First part of summary will be the principle raised by Mr. Zhu Shenhao, that we should keep the equivalence both in meaning and also in format. That is to say that the translation should be faithful and also to be smooth. So, and then when we are doing such kind of translation, students can choose this kind of methods freely and based on the principle that it is suitable. Okay. And the last one will be the assignment for students. I hope that they can write a kind of comment on the translation of their own, okay, or on the translation of their classmates, okay. And so these are all for my teaching plan. Thank you for your attention, and I'm ready for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. The first question concerns the translation of the text provided to you. would you like to say, just translate the first sentence for us?
The first sentence, you mean from 语义词类书 to
到求其次吧。
求其次 okay. When I was translating such kind of books, this book refers to Shakespeare's works. I have such kind of principle as my guiding ones. First, I will try my best to keep the meaning, or we can say the spirit of the original one. And if we cannot achieve this one, sometimes we can change the format.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of teaching, you actually list quite a few items under the objective of this 45-minute class. The first one is to help students to achieve a general understanding of the differences between English and Chinese. And second one is to help them understand the basic methods of translating this kind of text, which is sort of half Wenyan and half sort of contemporary Chinese, right? And you have even third one is assess the quality of translation, sort of, right? Do you think you can actually do all these 4 things, in a class of 45 minutes?
Okay, so these are the objectives, and I will try my best. Maybe we cannot cover all those ones, but I will try. And during the teaching processes, for example, the differences of English language and Chinese language, in the second part about the factors influencing the translation, this will refer to this part, so the students will have an understanding about difference. And then for the methods, this is just one important part of my teaching. So this one, I'm sure that I can realize this one. And then for how to evaluate, maybe this one, we just mentioned 2 important theories from Mr. Zhu Shenhao. So just a kind of referring to it, maybe not an emphasis. Okay. And the last one, that is reader-friendly translation. This one, maybe in my class, I spent a little time on this one. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all. Okay.